Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So we've got another 5 days of a lot of sunshine and a lot of warm weather in general. Temperatures will be slightly up and down depending on each region and on each days, but we're not seeing many areas will be getting below sort of the mid to high teens, and some areas could peak as high as 24 or 25 degrees come Wednesday or Thursday. And we do have high pressure truly just sat on top of us with a very warm air mass, and it will allow those temperatures to rise locally, set into those mid 20s. So yeah, looking great for many this upcoming 5 days. But as we head into the longer term, as we see on the GFS, GEM, eCMWF and the ensembles, there is still a lot of uncertainty in terms of those air masses. It still looks fairly dry with limited cloud and any showers, but the air masses could be a bit of a problem because it's looking very probable that we will see some influence from some Arctic air masses to our north. Whether it impacts the whole area, whether it just impacts some parts of Scotland or eastern half of the British Isles, we can't say for certain, but a lot of runs are now showing colder air trying to push in. Again, the extent of that cold air still yet to be determined. So as you see in the second half of the video, a lot of ensemble members are now more towards average, maybe even slightly below average, as we head into sort of the first full week of June, perhaps around sort of the 5th to 10th of June. But I must stress that it's not too bad. There's not a lot of rain associated with it at this stage. It is just generally slightly cooler air masses, would be a little bit more of a nip to the air instead of a summery feel like we have had recently. So not a massive change, but compared to what we've had recently, it will feel perhaps a little bit cooler if that does come off. But we'll explore that, as I said, in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So if we do start on the live radar, as I record this around 11 AM, another bone dry day, and it will continue like this set over the next 5 days most likely. Could be a few isolated showers here or there, as we'll see in the UKV, but really isolated, not a lot at all. For the temperatures, as around 11 AM, you can see it's fairly warm, and the best temperatures will be in the far south and southwest today. We are seeing a bit of a cooler air mass actually wafting in at the moment, in from the north and northeast. Again, nothing too cold, and it's this sort of pattern that could prevail more as we head into June, where we do see a bit of a northerly or northeasterly wind. So you can see the further north and the further east you go, those temperatures do cool down, and that will be, as I said, the pattern for the next couple of days, especially for the north today, but more eastern areas through Monday and Tuesday, before all areas warm up on Wednesday and Thursday as we are sat more under the higher pressure. You can see the sort of air we're in across northern France is a lot warmer, but a northeasterly wind from this direction is coming off the continent instead of coming from the North Sea, the cold North Sea. So even though we're in the same air mass as places like Paris, who are seeing mid to high 20s, most of the British Isles is more around the 20-degree mark. Again, that's not too bad. Some people probably prefer 20 degrees over high 20s, but nevertheless, if we did see a wind change like we will see on Wednesday and Thursday, we will see those temperatures really climb. If you look at the UKV now, you can see over the coming days, we do have a bit of cloud through this afternoon, but again, nothing too crazy. There will be some breaks, but most of the time there could be a cloud around. So it's not a completely clear sky day, but of course that will change vary day on day, and it'll be very difficult to predict exactly the cloud amounts. But looking at the latest run, looking like there'll be quite a bit of cloud around, but it won't be completely overcast in most areas. As we head into Monday, again, a lot of cloud around, especially high-level cloud there, but again, another very dry day. Easterly wind in full force now, so it will start to cool down in the east as we see the 2 meter temperatures in a minute, and widely be slightly cooler, but again, not too bad. Still fairly pleasant for the time of year. As we head into Tuesday, still will probably be a little bit cool in the far east, but more sunshine breaking out. Those temperatures will start to rise more widely, and by Wednesday they'll start to hit perhaps a little bit of a newer peak, getting towards low 20s, maybe mid 20s, and we could see more widespread mid 20s as we head into Thursday, where again, beautiful sunshine centered under the high pressure, and we'll look at those upper air temperatures climbing to around 10 degrees widely, locally as high as 13, 14. So if we had these temperatures sustained, had that heat build, wouldn't be surprised if we saw high 20s or 30 degrees in this sort of scenario, but we have got a lot of uncertainty with that as we do try to put in cooler air set in the following days, perhaps towards next weekend here. So could be very warm the latter part of this working week into the first few days of June. We'll just have to really keep an eye on what happens with that. If you look at the max temperatures, you can see through this afternoon the best temperatures set in the south and the southwest could actually reach 23 or 24 here, but through northern areas more towards the mid-teens, and even eastern areas starting to cool down there through East Anglia. As we head into Monday, another widely warm day, but down that east coast, you can see the east coast is now taking the brunt of any of that cooler air, more towards sort of 15-16 degree range, further westwards 19 to 21. So widely a touch cooler than it has been recently, but still warm. Into Tuesday, another very nice day. Still a bit chilly along the east coast, but temperatures, as I said, starting to rise further westwards, 21 to 23. And by Wednesday, more widely warmth, especially through Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, 22 to 24 there. Bit more cooler air through parts of England, but I do think that is more associated with cloud, not associated with air mass. So that could change drastically if those cloud amounts do deviate, which is probably quite likely at this time frame. And finally into Thursday, you see another very warm day, peaking maybe 25 in the southwest. Still a bit chilly in the east again, probably due to some trapped cloud, but elsewhere further westwards, really warm and really stunning. Best conditions could be in the coming days in Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, parts of Wales, and southwest England. Again, away from the sort of typical east Midlands, East Anglia, southeast England, which do see the very warmest conditions, and we see a bit of a southerly flow. So, yeah, looking really nice in many areas. Again, west is looking best at the moment. If you run over to the GFS now and see what that is showing over the course of the next couple of weeks, you can see the high pressure is in control, but you can see that easterly flow next week. Again, not that strong of an easterly wind, but strong enough to hold those temperatures down in places. Beyond that, as we head into the first full week of June, you can see the wind direction veers to more of a northerly. Now, at this stage, we're still actually in a relatively mild air mass. Not a relatively warm air mass, relatively mild. Again, warm would sort of be 10 degrees at 850 HPA, which we have got at the moment, or we're going to be having over this coming week, especially sort of through Tuesday to Friday. You can see there 10 degree upper air temperatures. Other runs have more of a bit of a bigger swathe of those upper air temperatures. But as we into the long term, those air masses do cool down, and slowly we see some colder Arctic air just slowly drifting down the North Sea towards the UK, and by the end of the run could start to flirt with northern Scotland. Not likely elsewhere, but slightly cooler elsewhere. Starting to flirt with northern Scotland, and you see the temperatures here, high teens in the south, mid to low teens further northwards. So it is taking a hit to the temperatures, this sort of air mass. You can see it here. It isn't ridiculously cold in the south, but average to slightly below average further northwards, getting well below average there with the upper temperatures, perhaps getting down to -4 or maybe even -5, just flirting on the top of the chart there. Again, it takes a very long time for this air mass to move in. The GFS is definitely resistant to it, but it does eventually make its way in. So would it, instead of being sort of a sharp cool down that we thought could happen earlier this week, is looking from this run like it'll be a very gradual cool down from maybe 25 or higher later this week, and then it's to around sort of the 10th of June, sort of in sort of a week period, drifting down towards the high teens instead. So we'll have to see what happens. Again, it's not too bad. Again, it'd just be a hit to those air masses. Precipitation still looks fairly limited here. You can see there is some heavy shower risk at times here around that day 10 point. And you can see it is localised, so perhaps a bit of a thunderstorm outbreak at times here. You can see that, yeah, pop-up thunderstorms there. So no frontal rainfall, just the risk of some pop-up thunderstorms in the extended range as instability moves in. But at least until around sort of day 7, we are minimal precipitation, even to day 10, just a few thunderstorms across northern England and Wales, producing rain here, and then right towards 384 hours, more widespread instability moves in. So GFS is still widely pretty dry for the next 10 days. If you do look at the GM now, again, continue to see high pressure dominate, easterly flow though at times, which will keep those temperatures slightly cooler. And right towards day 10, we again see something similar to the GFS. We'd start to pull in a bit cooler air from the north, but even here we're still actually hanging on to that very warm air in the south. You can just see a bit of a cooler pattern starting to evolve here. So GM does follow on from the GFS, but once again has it at that day 10 to day 14 time frame, so well in advance. So we'll have to see if it does come off. At this stage I would be pretty sceptical of it, but you can see here even towards the 6th of June when it should start to slowly cool down, still hitting low 20s quite widely. And again, look at the accumulated precipitation. GM even better than the GFS to day 10. Absolute minimal precipitation. A few ones along the east coast, probably from a few isolated showers drifting off in the North Sea at times. But again, bone dry once again. If we look at the ECMWF now, so the first two runs did show a bit of a cooler spell towards the end of the run, or right towards the end of their runs. ECMWF, though, doesn't really show anything cool at all. All the way to day 10, we are still firmly under higher pressure. Again, there is cooler air drifting slowly southwards from Svalbard into Scandinavia, but for the UK, we're still generally relatively warm. The temperature deviation isn't actually that warm. There is some slightly cooler air embedded within it, but it still is fairly decent. Again, completely bone dry for many areas. And if we do have a look at the 2 meter temperatures, you can see, again, nothing ridiculously warm, but still high teens into the low 20s. West probably looked best, continuing here all the way into early June. Now, I have been talking about that bit of a northerly flow. You can see for the main operational runs, it's not that big of a signal, but it's the ensembles that do sort of hammer it home. You can see here over the next week to 10 days, to around the 5th or 6th of June, out to day 10, it is above average, and we're likely to see temperatures widely in the low 20s for this period. But as we head towards the 6th, 7th, 8th of June, we dip to average or below average. And again, this is London, so it is in the east, but it's not particularly far northwards, so it will only really get cool if we did see a proper colder air mass move in. Now you can see it only gets to sort of 5 degrees at 850 HPA, which still could produce high teens or even touching 20 degrees, but there are quite a few runs that go down to 0 degrees at 850 HPA. Minimal precipitation still, so as I said, even if it does get a bit cooler, it still remain very dry. And yeah, still not looking too bad, if I'm being honest. We just have to keep an eye on what happens with that air mass. If it does bring in some more instability, and if it does bring in colder, especially further northwards. You can see a big spike in upper air temperatures for a few days later next week, and that's where we could see mid-20s or high 20s in a few spots. If you look at the 2 meter temperatures, you can see those temperatures rising, and again, these are the midday and 6 p.m. Predictions, so it will be higher by 3 p.m, so we're looking widely 20 degrees over the next couple of days, and then maybe mid-20s later next week, and even into longer term, high teens here, not quite as warm, but again, those upper air temperatures are dropping slightly, but still, as I said, very dry. So even if we did see something slightly cooler, maybe you have to put maybe a sort of thin jumper on for going out, but at least you're not going to need any raincoats or umbrellas or anything like that in the foreseeable future. If you do compare it just to Glasgow, though, just have a look at these upper air temperatures further northwards. You can see very similar, well above average over the coming days, even higher above average than London is. So it just shows you how far north that very warm air mass is getting, that even though Scotland probably won't be that much warmer than further southwards, probably quite similar, low 20s, compared to average, Scotland is going to be well above average, 5 to maybe as high as 10 degrees above average in some spots. So yeah, compared to average, Scotland's going to be one of the warmest regions over the coming days. You can see in the long term it does dip more towards average, as maybe slightly below average, but actually not too far below, as the 1981-2010 mean for Scotland is of course a few degrees cooler than further southwards. So does it likely from the ensembles here that a cooler air mass will move in, but it's not going to be anything too potent, which is good. If you look at the ECMWF now, just to finish up from the ensembles, very similar over the next 10 days, well above average, and we do see that dip right in the extended range, and increase in precipitation around the 9th to 11th of June. So there is the risk here of some rain and some cooler conditions moving in, but again, I must emphasise that it is in the extended range. Anyone saying that we're imminently going to go cool, imminently a northerly wind, imminently any rainfall, it's not looking likely. 10 days beyond at this stage. It could change, but from the latest model outputs, you can see even to the sort of the 4th and 5th, there is very little deviation in those upper air temperatures and very minimal precipitation at all to around the 8th or 9th. So it is looking amazing over the next 10 days. So make sure you do go out and enjoy it. And of course, enjoy the bank holiday tomorrow. Even though it is slightly cooler in those surface temperatures, it will still be a fairly pleasant day. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Maybe we'll see a bit of a weather change soon, as it is getting a little bit monotonous, but at least it's getting monotonous, saying very warm and dry conditions. And we'll just, as I said, have to see what happens over the coming weeks and coming months. It will break at some point. We will probably see some thunderstorms and some very unsettled, rainy weather at some point, and we'll just have to keep an eye on when that will be. So, as I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.